Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for a Learning and Growing webinar series um, on math and statistics anxiety and its impact on teaching and learning. Our presenter today is Dr. Hedes of Avila University. My name is Sidra, and I'm your moderator for Hawks Learning. We will have a live Q&A session after the presentation, so please enter any questions you have into the Q&A module as we go, and we'll be sure to answer them at the end. I'll now hand it over to our presenter. Thank you.
Hello. Let me just share my screen. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining the session today. I'm very excited to host it, and I hope it will be informative and inspiring. I would like us to start with considering two questions and would appreciate your input on the chat. First two questions is math anxiety a real thing? Is it a real thing? What do you guys think? Also, do you think there is a difference between math and statistics anxiety? I want to see what you guys are, your thoughts on those two questions. Can everyone respond on the chat? I mean, is it open for responses?
Yes, the chat feature is open for everyone to respond.
Okay. 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 I see so far most of you agree that math anxiety is real, and some of you think that there's no difference between the two. Okay. All right. Definitely real. Okay. So we all agree. From what I can see here on the chat, that math anxiety is a real thing. The truth is that anxiety, we know from psychological research that anxiety is a real thing, right? That people experience from young kids to adults. And math anxiety is indeed a real thing. Regarding the second question, there is actually a vast research about the topic that suggests that math and statistics, math anxiety and statistics anxiety are somewhat different in their nature. And the whole research actually stemmed from using the same initial instrument for measuring anxiety. At the end of the presentation, I actually have some references that you guys can look at that, kind of outline the different scales for measuring statistics anxiety versus the scales for measuring math anxiety. There's a big research that started in 1985 by Cruz et al. That developed that statistics anxiety rating scale, stars. The truth is that even if you just do a simple Google Scholar search, you can find a lot of information on the topic. We can dwell on the research for a long time, but really what I wanted us to discuss today is how do we actually define and identify math anxiety, and talk about some of the common causes and the common symptoms that we can experience and observe in our students, and also kind of come up with some techniques to help students reduce math anxiety and to help us address, as instructors, address that math anxiety a little bit better. So let's look at the kind of like, how do we define math anxiety? Well, the first and foremost is the fear of failure, right? Students know that they have to take a math course in college. Some of them come already prepared from high school, some of them not, and they're just simply afraid to fail. Some of them feel inadequate, the imposter syndrome, for example. We can have high school students that are fresh out of high school, and they just feel that college is too big on them and they're just not ready. On the other hand, you have the adult learners that also feel that they don't fit because they have not taken a math course in many years. So that feeling of inadequacy can cause anxiety. Also, some feelings of tensions and apprehensions of fear that kind of interferes with the math performances. And another definition is the avoidance. Like I see a lot of students that, in the first couple of few classes, they come, they participate, they engage, they maybe do the first 2 or 3 weeks of homework on time, and then they start to either avoid coming to class or avoid participating in class and think, oh, look at it later. And then they start, not submitting their homework on time. And it's just kind of an expression of math anxiety. Does the wide crowd have some other ideas here about how do we define math anxiety? I want to see if you guys have anything to add here from the list. Okay, I'm not seeing anything on the chat. But I can tell you there could be, other expression of math anxiety, not causes, but expressions. So let's look at the causes. Okay, you see it in your astronomy class. You mean that these kind of symptoms or these kind of expressions, Martha, is that what you meant? Okay. So let's look at the causes. Like, we defined the math anxiety and how it kind of expresses in our experience as instructors. And let's see what could be some of the things that cause math anxiety. So could be past math experience or negative experience in classes, like students didn't do so well, teachers were not so compassionate or passionate to help their students' success. And that kind of created an impact, an experience that stuck with the students. For example, I had a student in my statistics class last year that he failed stats course for the first time because at the time when he took it, the teacher was focusing a lot on plugging numbers into formulas and calculating standard deviations by hand and things like that. And it took me a few meetings with the student to convince him that that's not the focus of my class. My class, if you guys are aware of the Gaze report, there's a different approach for teaching statistics now, which is more kind of oriented towards interpreting data, interpreting graph, analyzing, and not so much on the hands calculation. And so it took me a while to convince that student that to leave that past experience behind him and kind of be open to what I have to offer in the current class. Eventually, he was successful. Like he let go of that past experience and he was actually successful. Now, remember, us as teachers can also be a factor. I know, for example, sometimes I catch myself, teaching a topic in math and using like expression, oh, guys, this is easy. Well, it's easy for us, but not necessarily easy for the students. And sometimes just, saying those things kind of automatically can cause anxiety for our students. Some students have challenges with the complexity of math concepts. There's some math problems that have multiple steps of solving them, and that complexity of the steps of solving a problem, create a lot of challenges for our students. Some students are challenged by the concepts that are abstract, that are kind of hard to, materialize them, right? Explain them in like a real life manner. And for some students, math is just a foreign language. They just don't think with numbers. They think with in other ways. and it can cause an anxiety. And some students, after all, may not also be well prepared. They may have not taken, enough of the very kind of basic math classes in their high school or elementary school, and they're just simply not prepared. And just the fact that they know that they're not prepared, it brings a lot of anxiety into their experience in a current course. So I wonder if any of you have experienced or witnessed any other causes in addition to what I have listed here. I wonder if you guys have. Okay, I see some of you English as a second language can cause also an anxiety. That's correct, because they may understand the math, terminologies in their native language, but in English they don't, and that absolutely can cause anxiety. I see a comment here about back to grammar school. We need grammar school math teachers that loves math and know how to teach it. Sometimes parents give negative speech about math, right? Or parents just say, oh, math is so hard, you have to do so well, you have to dedicate yourself and do well, and that can, create an anxiety with the child. That's true. Thank you guys for sharing all of these great ideas. So now that we defined math anxiety and we kind of looked at the causes, in real life, in class, how do you identify students that present symptoms of math anxiety? So you can see some students that sometimes you teach a concept and you see on their face that they're like sick to their stomach because the concept is so hard for them to understand and grasp. Sometimes you see sweaty palms, right? Students that are, rubbing their hands or dropping their pen and rubbing their ties with their hands. And sometimes, you can witness just students when you ask them questions, you can feel that their heart rate is kind of high, and because they're fearful, right? They experience that anxiety. So with all that in mind, what are some of the things that we can do to help our students reduce, their math anxiety? And the truth is that there are, concrete techniques that are around how we teach, right? Our methodologies and our approach for teaching, but there's also some kind of more of a mindfulness techniques for helping students kind of reduce their stress levels kind of on the moment and help them just manage what they're experiencing in a better way. So some of those are as follows. There is relaxation techniques, and by the way, I have to admit that during actual classes that we teach for the full audience, it's not always easy to practice any those things. However, if you teach a core requisite course, and I know for myself in my core requisite courses, I have students that are not meeting the placement requirement to take the college level course without the assistance, and so they're placed in what is called a math lab or a core requisite. And in that core requisite course, we have more room to introduce those techniques. And the truth is that most of the students that are in those core requisite courses are those that actually really experience that math anxiety and really need that extra support. So the first method that we can help, guide our students to adopt is the idea of a relaxation techniques. And one of them is a tension relaxation method. And actually it's a kind of common practice in yoga. And by the way, I'm also a certified yoga instructor, where you introduce the body attention and then relaxation, and then the body, just by that differentiation between the tension and the relaxation, it just brings it brings more awareness of the relaxed state, and it helps the body get easier into the relaxed state. And again, it's not just the relaxed in terms of the muscle, it's also relaxation in terms of the mind. And then it kind of alleviates some of those anxiety symptoms that students can experience. So the idea is that you guide students to put their feet flat on the floor, grab underneath their chair, and kind of at the same time that they're pushing down with their feet and kind of pulling up on the chair, they kind of creating a tension in their body for about 5 seconds, and then they let go for about 5 or 10 seconds. And then repeat, a few times. So that's, again, introducing the body into the difference, the idea of identifying the difference between a tension in the body and relaxation. And it's just easier to sink into the relaxation mode that, again, it has both a physical and a mental impact. Of course, deep breathing techniques, just inhaling, guiding students to inhale slowly and deeply through their nose, kind of filling up their abdomen with air. It's kind of using the bottom of their lung. Then pause for a couple of seconds, hold their breath, and then exhale through their mouth, just pretending like they're whistling out the air. And I know personally in some of my classes, I remember when before actually I moved to teach mainly online, I had a couple of sessions where a student came to a test, and I could feel like the anxiety in the room, like I could feel how they were so tense and so like anxious, that I just decided on the spot, I'm going to do that deep breathing with them for, a couple of minutes. It was worth the time. And I gave them, of course, extension to complete the test at the end. And student came up to me after, and they said that really helped. That was really a helpful thing, because when you do those deep breathing, you right away, it helps with the nervous system. It helps kind of regulates the nervous system and introduce more of a calmness sensation into your body and your mind as well. Most of my classes, I use soft instrumental background music when I give them questions to work on or tasks to work on. Or sometimes I use like a calming imagery on the screen. And that I find that, it's helpful just to bring in more of a calm environment into the class. And you can do that in an in-person class and online class, at the same time. The big thing with mindfulness techniques is the self-talk, and, kind of managing those negative thoughts that we have, in our head. And we all experience that, adults and students and even young kids. And so one of the things that we can help the students in eliminating their negative thoughts and managing their self-talk is to give them like a little exercise to write down up to 3 negative thoughts they have about themselves or about their situation in a class, or just a situation in college in general. And then encourage them to find positive statements to offset those negative thoughts about themselves. So then they see that, their mind is going into a negative direction in their thoughts, but they themselves can come up with a positive statement to offset that negativity. And so the focus is now shifted from the negative to the positive. And another thing about managing self-talk is once they create those positive statements, they can say those same positive words over and over, and kind of use those positive statements to develop those positive thoughts trend. And it kind of, at the end, it kind of becomes an automatic, right? A negative thought pops up, but right away they say, no, 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 this is the, emphasis on the negative. And it kind of like, creates an automatic manner of tuning into their positive thoughts. And of course, another thing we can help them do is celebrate their successes. So when they manage to solve a problem on the first spot, the first trial, you say, emphasize, they need to emphasize on their success, celebrate their successes. So that's kind of, again, mindfulness techniques that we can empower our students with. Are you guys aware of or have used any other techniques in your classes that you may want to share with us on the chat? Are there any other techniques that someone would like to share? Again, in the mindfulness realm, I do have another slide about strategies for us as instructors on what we can do. But on the mindfulness, is there any other idea that anyone would like to share? Okay, I'm not seeing anything on the chat, so. Okay, what's that? What's Pulse? I see a comment here. We have students, Pulse, who help with anxiety. What's that stand for? I'm not sure. The PALS. I'm not sure I'm saying it correct. Martha, would you like to? Okay, so good students trained in anxiety, that they help the students that are not so trained. Is that what it is? I'm not sure. I understand that. Okay. Okay. So again, these are what I highlighted first. These are some of the mindfulness techniques that we can empower students to use and adopt, and we can guide them. Again, they're easily applicable in a core requisite courses or maybe smaller classes, but they are manageable to do in B class, especially like the deep breathing techniques, before tests and exams and things like that. And also, during class time and class discussions, when you assign some class activities, you can use soft instrumental background music. It's easily done again in both in-person and online classes. So what are some of the strategies that we as instructors can use? Well, we play a big part in how successful are our students. And so we want to, as much as possible, improve our methodologies and kind of broaden our horizon when dealing with the learner's anxiety. So kind of being more sensitive to those students that experience those symptoms, or present those situations in class. So we want to make sure we are, more compassionate when we explain things. Maybe pay attention to our pace, how we teach, what the pace that we teach. I know I personally have some challenges in some of my classes that I have, such so many topics to cover, and there's not enough weeks in the semester to cover all of them. And so I know that can be a challenge for us. However, sometimes you can assign some topics as a take-home assignment, and then you cut off a lot of the time in class for the lecturing, and let students do the exploration, and then address any questions that they have in class. So kind of improve our methodologies and explore different things, and so on. Another thing we can do is provide clear instructions. So, a lot of the times when, we create our syllabus or we create an assignment, we kind of assume that students understand easily what is required of them just by, reading the syllabus or by reading the assignment instructions. And that's not always the case. So sometimes, I know personally in my stats classes, for example, when I assign a project, I actually dedicate about 5 or 10 minutes in class to go through the instructions of the project so that students understand what I want of them, what is expected of them. And so I think that helps a lot with the anxiety and fear of students. We also want to empower students to integrate some study skills, for example, kind of briefly discuss with them the importance of taking notes, and maybe provide some references on how to take notes. There's a lot of good resources online, good like open resources on how to take notes, and promote time management. When I post in, for example, a project or an assignment that is a bigger, not like a weekly homework from one week to the other, but something that requires a little bit more time, I post it like 3 weeks in advance. And then every class, I kind of encourage the students. So have you looked at the project? How is it going? Do you have any questions? So kind of like help them with the idea of time management, like not waiting until the last day, when the day before the project is due, and starting to work on it right then, right? And of course, promote growth mindset. This is a big thing for math classes, and this helping students understand that math is something that everyone can learn, regardless of their past experience and regardless of their, current state of knowledge. They can learn. If they put their mind to it, they can learn. They can grow their skills and, become better. I in my core requisite courses, I actually assign an assignment where I assign them a few videos that explains this idea of growth mindset versus fixed mindset. There is some really good TED Talks about the idea. So it's about 3 or 4 videos that I ask my students to watch. They're short, they're like 5-10 minutes each. And then at the end, I ask them to write like a reflection assignment to, just be honest with themselves. What is their current kind of state of mind, and how they can imply that information about growth mindset. And I had one student that I was like, this is, for me, it's the biggest success I've ever had. The student started class, she was in my core requisite course. She started by saying she's not good at math, she doesn't know how to learn math. And, with dedication and working with her own homework very passionately, and then, assigning that growth mindset assignment, I could see a complete shift. At the end, I think she finished with an A+, her main math course, not just the lab. And I just bumped into her, a year later on campus, and she said, that assignment was it really shifted my college experience overall. I realized that I can learn. I realized that I can do things, and I can grow, and I can become who I want to become. And it was very empowering to hear her, and to see her in that, that transformation. Another thing we can do is maintain a safe environment to make mistakes. Emphasize that making mistakes is a necessary part of learning process, and use the mistakes that students make to actually explain things better. I sometimes, I joke with my students. I say, whoever answers this question wrong gets 5 bonus points. And because I know that, the common mistakes, I kind of anticipate the common mistake that they're going to do. And I know I'm going to reward them for making that mistake, because everyone can learn from it. And so just the idea that you create a safe environment for them to, make mistakes, learn from it, refine their understanding, ask questions, and, improve their skills. Of course, we also want to use technology to enhance their learning, but also at the same time be gentle, because not all students are, technologically literate. Maybe now more and more after the pandemic and so on. But we can, for example, in my college algebra classes, I use some Desmos activities that help a lot with the learning process. In my stats classes, I use word cloud and things like that, or Jamboards for discussion and so on. And I find students like that more and more, like they like that interaction, more and more. Does anyone have other ideas that I did not mention here that they use in their classes, that they applied or are aware of? Excuse me. Any other ideas from the wise audience? Okay. Working in groups, yep, that helps. Sometimes you can put students in a group and you have within one group one student who is more anxious than others, and the others can actually help him. Be positive, tell students that they can do math. That's exactly it. That the idea of the growth mindset, that's exactly it. Be compassionate and passionate about their learning process and their growth. Yep. All right. So I see, celebrate students who can point out your mistakes. Yeah, that's a great one. That's a great one. Like, we as instructors, even though we do math for so long, we always make mistakes on the board, right? And so I get excited, like Julie here, I get excited when students actually find out and correct my mistakes, and kind of celebrate that. That's great. That's a great way also, because from that experience, students learn that everyone makes mistakes. Even my math teacher makes mistakes, right? And they learn that it's okay, that it creates like a safe environment in the classroom. I agree. Great ideas, guys. Anything else here? Show common mistakes. Yep. Show common mistakes and kind of explain why these are mistakes and how to avoid them. That's a great tool to help students, with their learning process and growth, and alleviating their anxiety around mistakes and so on. All right, thank you, guys. These are great ideas. So to summarize, what we can do, to help students overall transform math anxiety, it's kind of like 4 things we can do. We can continue first our own professional development on math anxiety, continue improving our methodologies and approaches, and create positive energy when we teach math, meaning be passionate and patient and welcoming for questions, welcoming for understanding for mistakes. So kind of create positive energy around teaching math. Review. So sometimes students need a review of basic skills to build their confidence. What I found very helpful in my classes, at the beginning of every class, I kind of do a review quiz, a self-graded review quiz, to just review the concept that I taught in previous class, so that students have a continuation of ideas, because I always encourage them, after the class, go and review the notes, and before next class, also review the notes, even just for 5 minutes, going through what we learned. Not always, they don't always do that. So my way of enforcing it is to just do a self-graded quiz with a, one problem from the homework that they had, or from the class activity from the previous class, and just kind of review the concepts leading up to the next concept. And of course, engaging students in the learning process. So even if it's in a form of take-home assignments that they on their own explore some concepts, or in the class itself, asking questions and helping students guide the solution to problems, really just make them always engage in the learning process as much as possible. So that's it, guys. And my last slide here is some of the references that I mentioned in the beginning about the differences between math and statistics anxiety, some of the scales that are used for math and statistics anxiety, and so on. I actually have a document that has a lot more references. So if you guys are interested in looking more at the research behind the idea, feel free to email me, and I'm happy to share some more resources with you. Thank you, guys. So, okay, I see a comment here on the chat that use discussion boards in Canvas to engage students. That's excellent. That's an excellent idea. Whatever way you do it, that's great.
There's a question that where you said you can do it in core classes or face-to-face classes. What do you do for online courses?
Yeah, so I meant for online, face-to-face and online as well. I'm not sure. Oh, core requisite classes. So a lot of the stuff that I mentioned, I'm not sure what you refer to it, what you refer to here. But also for online classes, I do the same thing that I would do in in-person classes. So, for example, in core requisite classes, at the beginning, when students are actually specifically mindset reading relaxation techniques. Yeah, I actually, so for online, and when I'm talking online, I'm talking about online asynchronous classes, not asynchronous. So for asynchronous classes, what you can do is maybe record like a short video for them, or put a link to a calming playlist, that the students can use while they do their homework, or when they work on class activities. I actually, in one of my core requisite courses, I do one class. I do, like, most of the time the students just come in and they just work on their homework, and I help them kind of like one-on-one. But I do have 2 sessions throughout the semester. One of them that I talk about time management and setting goals and priorities. And I usually do it kind of early on in the semester, maybe after like 5 or 6 weeks. And then later on, towards like shortly after midterm, I do a session about like stress management, where we actually talk about, stress, and then we talk about these ideas of breathing, relaxation techniques, and so on. Now, in terms of mindset, that's something that I, almost at the beginning of every class, I give the speech of, okay, guys, go work on your homework, and remember, you can do that. Remember, everyone can do math. And everyone can be successful in math if you put your mind to it. And of course, students that need a little bit more attention and more guidance, I work with them, more kind of one-on-one. Did I answer your question, Ruben? Did I answer your question? Okay. All right. What other, any other questions or comments? Okay. All right, guys, I'm not seeing any.
There's one more.
Okay.
For asynchronous, do you just give videos or chats?
Yeah, so the truth is that I personally don't teach asynchronous courses, but I've known others that use chats. I know in Canvas there is a chat feature. And I know I actually developed an asynchronous course for our adult learners that had, the kind of basic math levels with a college lab, and the core requisite was like 4 credit, and they provide the videos in that asynchronous course. Yeah, they provide videos. But chats, discussion boards are helpful. I actually this semester I'm using more and more of the chat on Canvas to, like, sometimes I just pose a question in class, more in my stats class rather than my college algebra classes. But I pose a question, and then students just participate on the chat. Sometimes I do it on a word cloud. Sometimes I do it on the chat. Yeah. Did I answer your question?
Yes. There's one other question for me. When can we access a recorded lecture, and how do we get the certificate for attending? We will be emailing you out the recording link once it becomes available. But do we have any other questions for Dr. Heddes? All
Okay.
right.
Thank
Well,
you,
thank
guys.
you everyone, Dr. Haddis, and thank you all for attending. If you or any of your fellow instructors are interested in presenting for our Learning and Growing webinar series, please submit your proposal to the Learning and Growing website, which I'm going to go ahead and link in the chat right now, so it's easy access for everyone to go ahead and click. All right. And we will be emailing you a link to view the recording of this webinar once it becomes available, like I mentioned before. And I
Thank you.
hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close out the webinar. It was a pleasure working with you again.
Okay, thank you. You too.
All right,
Bye-bye.
take care.
Take care.
Bye.